Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cucina Aurora Kitchen Witchery podcast, back on our series of conversational witchcraft. Today, we are talking to one of my favorite humans on the planet. I know I say that a lot. I have a lot of favorite humans, but this one is really fantastic. This is the amazing, incredible, kind, darling, fantastic friend, Robbi Packard. Robbie is the proprietress of the Robin's Nest, a metaphysical shop where magic meets community, located in Bellingham, Massachusetts. She's a witch and a high priestess of the craft. She's helped to foster a thriving pagan community by setting the example of kindness and compassion while walking in her personal power. Robbie is a general member of the Temple of Witchcraft and a practicing witch for almost 30 years. She's a businesswoman, an artist, craftswoman, community leader, charity organizer, and most importantly, a proud puppy mama. As you can hear the puppies in the background as we begin today. She has obsessions with gardening, photography, fabric, yarn, art, and of course, coffee, and strives to enjoy a combination of these things every day. Robbie, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the shoe. It's a really big shoe. This is really fun for me, especially because, well, first of all, I love you to pieces.
I love you.
I feel like I just started this podcast so I have an excuse to talk to my friends. Like that's really how it feels. Oh, who's this?
This is Emma.
Emma. And Emma's a Boston Terrier. Because all of your pups are terriers except for Polly B, the new baby.
Yeah, he's a Boston Frenchie mix. So he's half Boston, half Frenchie.
So is that a Benchy?
It's called a Frenchton.
A Frenchton.
Yes.
So you are literally one of my favorite people. I mean,
oh, thank you.
But what I was going to say was this is extra exciting for me because most of the people that I have had on the show to this point have been authors. And you are an entrepreneur, craftsperson, also in the pagan community. My cat just knocked something off the table. So if you heard a thump, everyone, that's what that was.
This is going to be all about the dogs and cats.
It really is. He's like going after something. My poor producer who has to edit this out. I'm like, Corey, I am so sorry. But it's amazing for me to have another entrepreneur on the show because so far we've really been focusing on the world of writing and being an author and that sort of thing. So to talk to someone in the pagan community, walking this path, whose focus is community action and togetherness and entrepreneurship and running a business, I'm very excited because I want to share your journey of craft and business with everyone. I don't necessarily know if people, and you and I have had this conversation, I think personally a bunch of times, like people have this misconception of if you are walking a pagan path, then there's almost like a feeling of, well, I shouldn't be able to be successful in business. Money is the devil. And I can't want to be successful. I have to do the work just for the sake of the work and not really about, being successful as a business person.
Which I have to tell you is so funny. I got to interject there because how many witches, pagans, whatever you identify as, how many of them constantly are doing money magic?
Yeah.
It's all,
yeah.
Love and money, and it's like doing all the money magic because it's like they want to bring more prosperity into their lives. And yet there's this weird feeling of
it's a disconnection.
Or it's like, or I have to be deprived.
Yeah.
To actually be, a true witch or a true pagan or whatever.
Or a true artist, right?
The premise of the starving artist.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. You can be an artist in whatever you want to do and be successful. A long time ago, a friend said to me when I was struggling with that, you have to figure out what your fee is. Fee being FEE, fair energy exchange. If you're putting this amount of energy into something and the energy that you're asking for in return is money, because everything is energy, then you have to figure out how much, how much cooking you did. What was your cooking energy and what is your cooking energy worth in money energy? Absolutely. And vice versa. And it really changed my perspective and going, oh, what I do has worth, Yes. So I would love to talk to you about your journey of finding your path as a witch or pagan. I'm not sure which term you prefer.
I identify as a witch.
Okay. So, so your path of finding the path of being a witch, and then also the path of being an entrepreneur. Because for me, entrepreneur, that word has been, it was a hard thing for me to kind of like start to call myself. I was like, oh, I run a business. Oh, I make olive oil. Oh, I write books. Oh, I teach classes. And all the while building a brand and not really being okay with that term entrepreneur, because I was like, oh, no, I'm just this little kitchen witch. And I'm like, oh no, I really am building a brand. And that's what you're doing with the Robin's Nest. So this is kind of what I want. First of all, what did you do before? How did you find your path? And how did you decide you wanted to run a business?
Well, and that's so funny. So I lived in the corporate world for a lot of years. I started, what my first job, I worked in a grocery store. This is my first job, 16 through about age 21 and 21, 22. And so I had, going up through the chains of that, having opportunities to learn a little bit about marketing and ordering and stuff like that. I really enjoyed, those parts of it. I didn't enjoy the constant drama and everything else. I mean, it's like, oh my
customers.
Gosh. You know what though? That's not true, because I loved my customers. By the time that I moved up to being a cashier in the grocery store, I actually had a stream of regular customers. It's not unlike today.
Yes.
And like at 21 years old, during the holidays, I'd wear a Santa hat to work, and I would make cookies and I would pass them out to my favorite customers that would come through like multiple times a week. And people would, even if I had a longer line than someone else, people would stand in my line so that we would have conversation and stuff. And that was even at a young age. And then I moved into hospitality. So I worked for the Four Seasons out in Santa Barbara, California.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, I worked in hospitality for almost 10 years.
Okay, that makes so much sense now. Like if you know Robbie, she's like the most hospitable hostess, like hospitality being part of your magic, I think for sure.
It's always that aspect of wanting people to feel comfortable and welcome. And I would say truthfully, so it was in my early 20s that I was introduced to the craft. I had no connection to it in my younger years growing up. And I think that's one of the things that's amazing these days is the accessibility. Like I had back in the 80s, we had nothing. I mean, it was just like, and even in the early 90s and whatnot, I always knew the things that I liked. And I always, like when I was a kid, I lived in a pretty rural area and there was all these abandoned quartz mines. So you would find, milky quartz, rose quartz.
Oh, come on. Oh, that's amazing.
And so I would go and I would gather up all these rocks, and I would make circles and I would sit in them. Or I would climb under bushes and I'd be like, oh, I'm just talking with my friends. It was just, I was that weird kid.
You're talking to the fairies and you're, I mean, you
the land spirits.
Yeah. When you're a child, those filters aren't there, or it's just so much easier to connect with things because you believe them for what they are, as opposed to having to, as an adult, be like, are there fairies? Are there spirits? I'm not sure.
I used to, when I was younger, and again, I had no association with the craft. I didn't even know it existed. I used to take my cousins, my sister and my two cousins, when we would spend the night at their house, on guided journey meditations to other realms.
And what did you think? What did you think you were doing?
This was just like, it was something that we would do. We'd be at my aunt's house, and, you know, my cousins would come out of their room late at night and come into the back room where my sister and I were, and we would lay out there. And, so it was usually around the holiday breaks of school and things like that. And I would have us travel. Are you ready for this? Because again, I grew up with a basic Christian background.
Yeah.
We would travel through the Star of Bethlehem into another world. So I would, and I was probably like 10, you know? And I would tell a story. I just thought I was telling stories, and we would travel through the stars to go to these other realms. And so it was really cool. So, you know, wow. When I look back on my life, it's like, obviously I've been a witch my entire life. I mean, that's just an integral part of who I am.
Yeah.
So, you know, I worked in hospitality for a number of years, and then, I worked in corporate America. I worked in insurance. I worked in banking. And there came an opportunity back when I was still living in San Diego and of course I love all things coffee, to open a very small, and I mean tiny coffee cart kiosk. And so I did that only for about a year before meeting my husband and moving out to Massachusetts. And we've been out here 15 years now. So I had lots of experiences, you know, in my early 20s, living in Santa Barbara with going to places that I found magical and peaceful, but I was also very uncomfortable. And that was an interesting dynamic, because I wanted to be in these spaces so bad, but I didn't feel welcome. I didn't feel like I could be there.
Why was that?
You know, it was weird. So there's this one shop in Santa Barbara that I would go to, and I didn't have any money. Like, I was working 2 and 3 jobs. It was back in the day when you could roll pennies for gas money.
Oh yeah. We've all done that. Yeah.
And there was this one shop, and it was bright and it was airy and it was beautiful. And they had these pod things that you could sit in and listen to this great, you know, peaceful, transformative, what we would consider new age music. But it was Santa Barbara. Things were very expensive, even in the early 90s. Yeah. And, but the people that worked there were much older. Mm. Actually, they're probably my age. Right. Now. My 20, you know.
Yeah. It's intimidating. It's intimidating.
Right.
Yeah.
It was very intimidating. And I felt like I was intruding. I didn't feel like I was, you know, welcome in the space. So that always stuck in the back of my mind. And after we moved here, and I'm working my corporate banking job, and I started getting, you know, I met a couple of people in the pagan community, and I find that on the East Coast, it's much more accessible than what I had available to me back on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And it just kind of started with, you know, those messages from spirit that just started, hey, you should open a shop. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's not going to happen. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And over the course of, in all honesty, about 2 years, and it was getting more intense from spirit, of you need to create a place for people to gather. You need to open a store, you know, and I was getting, truthfully, I was getting very frustrated by the constant message. It was not inspiring.
It was like a nagging,
yes,
like mommy, mom, right? Like they're like really pissed off. They're like, everywhere you go, there's a sign, and you're like, I hear you. Maybe I'm not ready. I hear you. It's the wrong time, right? Like, yeah.
Well, the biggest part of it too was, you know, there was multi levels of factors that were, you know, kind of keeping me in my place on it, and the biggest one was fear.
Absolutely.
And the biggest one was really, really fear of, can I do this? I don't have inherently a business background. I have no idea what I'm doing. And it was like, I have no money. How do I start a business with no money?
Yeah.
And I have no place to do it. Like I can't, all of these things are going on in my head. And so one day I just got very frustrated. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. If this is what I am truly and honestly, if this is my life path and this is what I'm supposed to do, I need a sign. I don't want no stupid bird on a car sign. Like, no, nothing vague.
Right.
Like I need specifics.
Yes.
So I put this out there and I was like, otherwise leave me the F alone.
Right.
You
can totally say fuck on this show. Just no, Robbie doesn't curse.
So it was, I'm just like, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done being harassed. 3 days later. Now I tell no one of this. No one.
Yeah.
3 days later, I'm sitting at home and my husband, Mark, walks in through the front door and he's like, hey. I was like, hey, how was your day? He was like, good. He goes, I have a place for you to open a store. And I, yeah, that was the look on my face. And I went,
I'm sorry, what now?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, yeah, I have a place for you to open a shop. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you have talked about this for years and I have a place. So he had a friend that owned a building, falling down building, in Milford. And the back part, this building was over 200 years old and Mark had done maintenance and work on this building for years. It had been in the guy's family. The front part of the building and the upstairs was being used as a music store and lessons. The back half had a bunch of junk piled in it. And he's like, yeah, he says, you can just totally use it. You don't even need to pay rent. And I'm like, what? And it was just so, Cheryl, one of my, very, very close friends. And I was just like, what
do you say? Like literally, like you were like, I want the sign.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, here's this space that's free. So there's no risk. You're worried about, I don't have any money. All those what ifs, all those buts that you're doing in your head are now gone. You have no excuse.
Well, and that's just it. I still didn't have any money.
Right.
And so we're cleaning, we have to clean out this space. We've got to fix things. My kids were really young at the time. And I'm like, well, how am I going to buy product? We had the wherewithal to do the physical labor for, transforming. And it was a very small space. And then all of a sudden I start getting credit card offers in the mail. And then the 2 credit cards that I had, they were like, hey, you've been a really great customer for all these years. And my credit was junk. So let's just keep that in mind. My credit at the time was junk.
Yes. And we're not advising people to go into crazy ass debt.
No.
But
it was like
the opportunity is there. Right.
Yeah. Right. All of a sudden here's money, because opening a small business, I found out very quickly, nobody wants to give you any money.
No.
And it wasn't until we were at our 7-year mark that a bank actually gave me a business loan. 7 years. So for 7 years, I maxed out and rotated maxing out my personal credit cards, because that's how I ran my business.
Still there. Still there. Right. Like, that is what it's unfortunate what small businesses have to do. But the fact that there you are all of a sudden, and like you said, the money becomes available to you. And
it wasn't a grand amount, but it was just enough. And you were smart about it. So you were able to kind of like refurnish this small space. You were able to, bring in a small selection of products and get going. Yeah. How terrifying was that? Because once you go from, well, I'm afraid I can't do this. What if I fail? To, oh my God, what if I succeed? Yeah. And it was, so for the first few years, I actually still worked my corporate banking job. So I would work 3 days a week at the bank, and I would work 4 days a week at the shop. And, you know, and so there was transformation. Like that first 6 months, there was some big changes that happened. I initially started with a business partner. And I'm forever grateful to that person for kind of getting me off my butt and getting things going, but it was a no good situation.
Yeah.
Mr. B, I'm sorry to all of you.
No,
the baby is like wanting to play, and Violet's having none of it.
Because there are
He's like, I'm going to slap you down.
4 puppies.
4, yes.
4.
So the interesting part of it, hold on one second. The interesting part of it was how things, you know, grew and changed. And then it's kind of that premise of build it and they will come. And so community started developing over time, and people would find us. And Cheryl and I were just talking last night how there were days where we would have nobody come into the shop.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely none.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
I think it's really, yeah. We're gonna get to see Paulie B now.
Right.
Let's see his little face.
You're gonna see Mr. B. I am so sorry. This is Mr. B.
Oh, look at him. Hello, puppy.
He says, I am 8 months old.
Oh my God, look at those ears.
I just want my sister to play with me.
Look at those ears. I can't.
Right?
I get so they're gonna be. I'm sure that Corey, the producer, is gonna cut this audio out of the actual podcast, but the video is going to go on YouTube in its entirety, and everybody's going to be like, look at his face. Oh, he loves his mama. Oh, he loves his mama. Oh, he's so cute. Oh, he's so cute. What a ball of energy. Yeah. The older pups must just love him.
Sometimes they like to play with him. And then other times because they're all 9 and 10 years old, and the girls are, and he's 8 months,
and he's like, I love everyone.
Yeah, play with me, just please play with me.
And they're like,
no, I want to sleep.
They're like me around kids. I'm like, that's nice, go watch television. Don't. It's awful.
I feel you.
So getting back to your story here, you know, I believe that there's a misconception that running a small business is easy.
Right? I'm sorry. I have to. People do. They think, oh my gosh, you get to make your own hours.
I wish I had your life. And I'm like, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. No. But I also wouldn't wish it on the weak of heart, because
it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. No. I also think that your journey and my journey in particular are very interesting, because many people believe that being a quote professional witch is about making money off of tarot readings, psychic readings, teaching, and being, you know, practicing your craft and making money off of the actual, like doing the rituals and whatever. And the truth is that, and I say this to everyone, being a witch is the way we walk through the world. It's how we live our lives. It's how we live our lives. So when you take that and you kind of shake it all up with entrepreneurship, it bleeds into everything we do as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
However, you need to be a good business person and make decisions as a business person to be successful. And those two things can exist. You can be a good business person and a good witch.
Yes.
At the same time.
Absolutely.
Can you speak a little bit about that sort of combination of tasks, or that combination of philosophies in your success, or in a failure that you had that taught you that lesson?
Well, I think the success and failures, if we want to call them failures, is they go hand in hand, and it's very much this cyclical motion. So there's plenty of things that I've done that would be considered a failure, and like I said, this whole journey for me of entrepreneurship and running the business part of it, but then overlaying it with, community service work and charity work. And I'm a Gemini, I wear lots of hats. And so, there's all of that. So there's things that I've tried, especially at the beginning. I remember when we got our first shipment in, like we were about ready to have our grand opening. The first box comes in. I'm like, I have no idea how to price this. Not a clue. Not a clue.
Right.
And it was like, so over the years, you learn things, and, how do we do our pricing? Why do we do our pricing a certain way? And, how much do we have to dig to find resources that fit within what it is, the energy that we're trying to put out there? I think one of the things that's different about the Robin's Nest as far as product lines go is I don't purchase specifically from only metaphysical distributors.
Right.
I don't, because again, like you said, this is my everyday life. So I live my life consciously as a witch in how I can be in balance with, the harmony of the earth, harmony of the seasons, harmony of my community, all of those things. I'm not always successful, but I do try.
It's the effort that counts.
It really is the effort. But like, what are the things that bring me joy and happiness?
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be this quote metaphysical item or witchcraft item. It could be something that we use for every day. One of my favorite things ever is aprons. Like I make aprons. I love aprons.
Yes.
I love the energy around a useful tool. I am obsessed with cauldrons because they're useful.
Yeah. Practicality. I love things that are practical, right? I have 100 million wooden spoons. I will always buy wooden spoons. Dish towels. Again, those dish towels.
Flour sack dish towels. Hands down, the best.
I love
you can use them for so much.
You can use them for everything. And for me, like as a kitchen witch, a dish towel is so practical in my working that I'm doing because I'm always cleaning up or washing my hands or whatever. I will, especially if I'm doing like big cooking and I put an apron on and I tuck a dish towel into my apron strings because that's just who I am. But those dish towels help me to influence my environment. So I change them out for the seasons. So they're not just a tool, but they're also a visual cue.
But not only that, so I had designed a line of the flour sack towels that have witchcraft symbolism on them.
Yes.
Pentacles, triquetras.
Yes.
I have one that I absolutely love. It's called Feed the Ancestors. And it's a child, holding a flower. There's a tree with a skull at the base of the tree, and she's feeding the flower to it. So that one, like I do when I'm doing, ancestral cooking.
Yes.
I know a lot of people that actually have used them as altar cloths and they set that down. The one with, one with a pentacle on it, and I'm putting it over my food and stuff. So I'm infusing it with that. Yeah.
The cutting boards, like the cutting boards that we make that are burned with the symbolism. Yes. So you're chopping and you're cutting and and so the magical symbol is always there reminding you of your magic. Right?
Absolutely.
Because those everyday tasks, those practical items also are ritual. They carry magic. Getting back to this is who we are and how we will move through the world, not necessarily just what we do. Right. I mean, listen, we're both business owners. So the likelihood that I'm out under every full moon doing a ritual is like, it's not happening. Like I'd be very honest, that's not happening. Like it never happens. No. Right.
No,
but we cook our meals. You lay out a cup of coffee for friends that have passed. Like we do this sort of everyday magic. And it's those items that help us do those things.
That's why at the Robin's Nest, you'll find a lot of those types of items, like things that I handcraft, things that, call to me. And, we're so busy, and I'm so incredibly grateful. We celebrated our 12th anniversary this year, which is mind blowing.
Seriously.
Mind blowing.
Wow.
But there's things that I still like to make when I have time to make them. And, sewing projects. I like making my ritual robes and seeing people in our community wearing them. And I mean, it's incredible, the journey, really. But it's, people don't realize how much work goes in before the shop even opens.
Yeah.
And
you were saying earlier when we first came on, you were like, yeah, no, I'm up at 6 o'clock and, making my coffee and
at 6. I'm usually up by 5:15.
Right. I mean, listen, you're ahead of me because I go through phases where I do that, like when I have to do big pushes, I'm like, a production and stuff. And I would say that since COVID happened and I'm not on the road like I was, and our business has slowed down immensely, which is why I can do things like a podcast now. And things have shifted for us. There are elements of success and success mindset, that have to happen to be successful, whether or not you're a witch, right? In business. So those things like rising early, getting your shit taken care of, having a good outlook, knowing your customer, right?
That's a big thing. Like really knowing your demographic, knowing, who are you serving? And, I will tell you, for me, that's the thing. I don't consider myself the owner of the Robin's Nest.
Yes.
I am not an owner.
Yeah.
I am a caretaker. And that is a very big difference, because for the Robin's Nest, I treat the Robin's Nest as its own being, and it really has developed into its own personality,
Absolutely.
its own energy, its own essence.
Absolutely.
And I care for it as such. And that is a very big difference, I think, in this type of work versus maybe a different type of retail store. There is an energy and essence. When I come into the shop in the morning, I say good morning.
Yeah. It greets you.
Good morning, Nest.
Yeah. It greets you.
Good morning to all the deities that call the Robin's Nest home, that I have altars for. These, and I know that if you see it on the video, you'll see behind me are my altars to my friends that have passed in our classroom space. And, they get their coffee. So Raven Grimassi and Paul Berthollet and David Irwin. Mm-hmm. And, they all get their coffee in the morning, and, they make it a certain way. So there's that ritual that I do when I come in here and we activate the space. And at the end of the evening, it's the same process. It's thank you. We go to each and every altar. We thank you for the blessings of this day. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to do this work. Mm-hmm. Because we have such a variety of people that they want to come in, grab a few crystals. They're interested in this. They're interested in developing their spirituality, or, and they may not know where to start. And so because of the amount of experience that we have, we can, guide them in a way of, here's a little bit of information. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spoon feed everything to you, mm-hmm. and off you go. This is a journey. It's a process. And this is how mm-hmm. we learn. Mm-hmm. And then we have some people that come in and they're in true crisis, so it's interesting in this space, really, truly, because it's such a wide variety of who we serve. And that's it. We are serving.
Right.
We are serving, and we are caring for our community. And that mindset, especially in a metaphysical type of shop, makes a very big difference. When I see someone walk into the shop for the first time, and they walk into the door, and they hear the waterfall, fountain,
which is
going.
So freaking beautiful.
It is. and Lakshmi and Ganesh's altar is right there, and it changes constantly, because I'm always moving things around.
Yeah.
But they stop, and they just take a deep breath, and they're like, oh. And that weight that they carry on their shoulders, they're able to release.
It's 100% true. I mean, I have not been to the shop as many times as I wish I had, but I've been there enough to speak to what you're saying. I mean, you walk in and it's very unassuming because your location is in like this strip mall, and it doesn't, you walk up, you're like, really, this is the place. Okay. All right. And then you walk through the door and you're like, there's this fountain and there's Ganesha and there's always beautiful music and there's always chimes and there's, when you walk into a great shop and it has that smell, the smell,
people ask me all the time, what is that smell? And I'm like, it's everything.
It's the shop. And you take a deep breath and you feel connected. You feel connected to the space and also like to your heart. You're like, oh, right. This is how I'm supposed to feel all the time. Right. Okay. And then of course you're greeted by you and usually puppies and, and everything in the world feels better. It's like this bubble of peace and joy. And you're 100% right, because not all shops feel that way. There was a shop many years ago when I was still living on Long Island, the tiniest little store. I mean, it was probably smaller than my kitchen. And it was an amazing, amazing place. And I had the opportunity to work there part-time right before I started like doing my own business, my own kitchen witchery thing. In fact, they gave me the opportunity to do my first real like paid workshop. And it was incredible. And it had that same feeling. And that it's different now. One of the owners passed away and it's just not the same. But it had that feeling of, it didn't matter where you were coming from or what you brought in the door with you. And whatever you needed, whether, like you said, it was a crystal or peace of mind, you would find it in that space. And to be the person that provides that, you must feel an enormous responsibility.
Very much so. But it all harkens back to, like I was telling you earlier, about that shop in Santa Barbara that I would go to, that new age shop in Santa Barbara that I would go to, because I always felt uncomfortable. And, I lived a few years in Las Vegas and I was like, I need to find a witch store.
Yeah.
And I found a place, and it was a bigger, more commercialized, type of shop. And again, I walk in, I was ignored. And I felt uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like I was intruding.
It's just the energy of the space, right? Yeah.
And so that was such a big thing for me about the nest, was that I don't want anyone to feel that way. Now, that being said, this is a witch shop and we magic everything. And if you are not supposed to be in this space, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're just going to, want to
you'll gravitate away.
It's very rare that actually happens.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare. We have literally one rule at the nest, don't be an asshole.
Don't be a dick. That's rule number 1 at Cucina too. Don't be a dick. And rule number 2, just don't. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. Like that's right, those are the rules. Don't be a dick. Like,
don't be a jerk and whatnot. It's like, I don't care what your religious preference is.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. It's not going to diminish my religious preference or my spiritual preference.
Right.
And so when we're giving advice on, somebody's like, I need to do a cleansing, but I don't know what's involved with that. I always say, instead of, oh, you have to call on this deity, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's, you're going to call on whatever deity that is right for you.
Yes.
Who do you pray to? Who do you call on when you are in trouble? Right. That's who you're going to go to, because that's where your connection is.
Right. Right.
And, what's really interesting about those types of conversations is they're like, really, I can do that? And I was like, really, you can do that?
Yes. Yes.
Because fact that my way is not the only way.
Right. And isn't that refreshing, especially in these times, to be in a space or to be the facilitator of, hey, what you choose is okay. Because when you walk into a shop like yours, whether you are a novice or whether you are seasoned, the person running the shop or owning the space. And I mean, I don't mean in ownership way. I mean,
right.
The person who's in the space, you tend to look at that person as an authority figure.
Right.
Right. So to walk in there and have an authority figure say, hey, whatever works for you is good. There are no rules. That's one of the things about the pagan path that always appealed to me when I was coming up, was that, coming from a very staunch Christian background, a Catholic background, where it's one way or you're going to hell,
right.
is that there is not one way. There's a million ways, and you can mix and match those ways as much as you like. So again, this going back to Robbie, you saying, I am a facilitator. I am in service. And the way you serve is to create this space, is to hold this space for people and give them permission to be and do and practice and believe however and whatever they want. And it is a gift. It's a gift.
It is. But I'm going to caveat that as well, because I hear Raven and I hear Christopher, and it's like, yes, you can do whatever you want and you can have your own path, and no, you can't.
Yeah.
It's a yes and a no. It really is. Are we, especially, the Raven in my ear of, there are paths. So I liken it to walking through the forest. I try to spend as much time in the forest as possible. It's what feeds me in such a deep, deep way. And there's lots of paths in the forest that intersect and stuff. And then there's areas where you're like, okay, we're going to be blazing trails here. And that really is such a metaphoric journey of witchcraft and, pagan life. We can follow the path of what has come before us. And Raven would say that all the time. And so we learn the steps. Right. So if you're really choosing a witchcraft path, you're really choosing a pagan path, and you're integrating this in with your everyday life, following in the footsteps of those who have gone before is much easier.
Yes.
And then there comes a point where you may veer off that path and intersect with another one. And then maybe you come back to this path. And that is one thing, is especially with the amount of time that I try to spend in the forest, our paths aren't straight.
Absolutely not.
And what we used to do, we may not do now, but we may come back to it again later. And it's learning from those lessons along the way. So yes, as far as my personal opinion, as far as witchcraft goes, is there are tons of rules that you should follow or could follow, and then there's none.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that also so great, because we've been talking very much about the pagan path and then also the path of entrepreneurship. And I think that's that philosophy, that mindset of these paths and following in someone else's footsteps and then finding your own and then combining what you've learned is also the path of success for running a business. Right. It's like,
and it's important.
It's so important.
It's what sets you apart from, I don't like to think of other metaphysical shops as competitors.
Not
I just don't.
They're not.
They're really not, because everybody has something to be able to give and to provide for our community and our world. But, as a business owner, so when I put on the business hat part of it, the business hat, like, I want to stand out. I have worked all these years, like you said, making a brand, making a name. We have people that come from New York, from Connecticut, from New Hampshire, from, all over Massachusetts and stuff, that specifically seek out to come here because they've heard of us.
How amazing is that?
That is
how
so
amazing
incredible.
Is that?
It blows my mind. It blows my mind, but it is the amount of work that needs to be done. There's been some big changes. If people haven't been to the Nest since pre-COVID, we've made some big changes because we had to make big changes. And I think as part of a successful business, we recognize that there are going to be times in our business that we have to change, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be scary. Absolutely. And it's going to be all of those things, but you know, we don't have a choice, and we need to do that.
Absolutely. And I really want to hear about those changes, and I want to talk about that. Let's take a quick break so that we can hear from our amazing sponsors, and then we'll be right back with Robbie Packard, the amazing, incredible, kind, fantastic person. And we don't actually have to take a break. We can keep going, but I have to say it. Okay. So so talk to me. We're back with Robbie Packard from The Robin's Nest, talking about witchcraft and pagan path and entrepreneurship and community building and all that stuff that she does through her shop, The Robin's Nest. So Robbie, before the break, you were saying that since COVID, there have been a lot of big changes to the shop. Now, obviously, I haven't been there since before COVID.
Right.
I had the wonderful opportunity on many occasions to teach classes at the Nest, which were always, I mean, even if we had like 3 people, and we had big groups, we had little groups. And then I actually got to come to a couple of things where I wasn't teaching, which was great. Where we did the fireside with Raven, which was
Raven.
So wonderful. It's just like such a great memory. So tell us what's new at the Nest. What's going on with you guys since COVID? How have you navigated that and done whatever you needed to do to stay alive in these times?
So one of the biggest things that I think early on is I wanted the Nest to be a place where people could come in, gather, and and I know how this is. It's like, I want the Nest to feel like home. Yeah. So we would have kind of like our kitchen table in the shop, and we had a place where you could get coffee and tea, and you could sit and visit, and we could chat with like-minded people. And we had that for years at the shop. And so there was a big learning curve with that. So obviously when COVID happened, we shut down. We shut down completely for 3 months, and it was terrifying. So initially when we shut down, and I had started kind of doing some weekly updates, some Facebook lives of things that were going on, because we kind of saw this wave coming of what was happening. And I'll be honest with you, I was like, yeah, this is going to blow over. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. We were like, it'll be fine. By mid-April, we'll be back. We were in the middle of doing like all these shows. We were vending here and doing this and trade shows and all these things. And we were like, oh, I remember like March like 14th or something. Yep. And it was like, we were literally in Boston at a show, and it was like, everything shutting down, pack up your shit and get out of here. And we were like, it'll be fine. It'll be 2 weeks, and we'll be doing our show, at the beginning of April. It'll be fine. Nope.
Yeah, that was just it. It was like, I had to do a Facebook Live and be like, okay, so we had our spring Nestival psychic fair, we would do 3 big fairs a year. So we had that on Saturday, crazy busy. We were like, all right, we'll just, everybody use hand sanitizer and blah, blah, blah. And everybody was great about it.
Yeah.
And then, so that was that Saturday. Then the following week, it was like all of a sudden, very quickly, things started changing very, very fast.
Yes.
And we knew the governor of Massachusetts was going to shut down the state the following Monday. We knew it was coming. So on Friday, it was just, we had an experience on Friday, and I was like, that's it. We're closed. We're closing the doors. And I had to go on. And that really began kind of like my weekly update type of things that I do through Facebook. But it was this terror. Like, as a small business, as a, legit small,
very
business,
small. Yeah.
Like, we're so small that most like assistants for small business, banks, this, that, and the other, they're like, oh, you're too small. We're not going to help you. And I'm like, dude, this is why we need help.
Right. Right.
And I was like, okay, it's only going to be 2 weeks. It'll be fine. It wound up being 3 months.
Yeah.
I will tell you, we barely hung on during that time. And we hung on because people in our community still supported us. Like, I would get emails or I would get phone calls. Robbie, I want to buy $300 in gift certificates.
Right.
Okay. So that just paid my electric bill.
Right.
or, and we would do curbside. Like I was the only person in the shop. I would package up things and people would call me that they would come by, and I would go outside. I would set it down outside on a bench and come back inside.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so we did that. And then when we were able to reopen, we had to shift things around. So there's no more tea table at the Nest.
Right.
We don't offer that, and it's not coming back.
Right.
And that was part of a learning thing, because the interesting part of it was we took out the tea table, we cleared out that space. We actually use that back counter now as a workspace. And we have a small table that is literally for one employee to, work at with whatever it is that we're doing, processing orders and stuff. And we reconfigured displays in the shop to kind of space things out. And so people can move more freely and not feel so crowded.
Right.
But I think one of the biggest lessons was as much as and I'm going to be brutally honest here about this.
Yes.
As much as we loved having the tea table and having people come and hang out, and those who are regulars in coming to the Nest, that community and that sense of togetherness, from a business perspective, it actually was hurting our business.
Yep.
And that was something that was a hard realization for me.
Yeah.
Because it was like people felt like they were intruding in the space.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, we don't want that.
Right. No one wanted to interrupt. Like, oh, I have a question about this tarot deck, but I see you guys are all sitting there drinking tea and laughing and having a good time.
Right.
People's the politeness takes over, and they don't want to interrupt. And you'd be like, oh, do you need something? And the customer's like, oh, no, I'm fine.
No, I don't want to bother you.
I don't want to bother you. And you're like, no, bother me. Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that made a big difference, so in doing that, and fortunately, when we were able to reopen in this past year that we've been open, we reopened June of 2020, and with, all the COVID protocols in place, masks, hand sanitizer, occupancy limits, like only a certain amount of people were allowed in the store at any one time. And, so we've been navigating those things along the way. But taking out the tea table and creating that more open space and allowing people the freedom to really be able to be like, ask questions and not feel like they were intruding was a huge boost to our business from the business perspective, but also in the serving perspective, because, we're able to help more people.
Absolutely.
So, and in that time, and because we've had some downtime, we've done no in-person classes for a year and a half.
Yeah. 18 months. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've used that time to completely renovate our backroom space. So where we would have coffee and tea for guests who had during classes, it's all now in the back room. We've renovated a small little kitchen area. We've renovated our classroom space. So we've put in a lot of time and money into creating that space. So when we start doing in-person things again, and it's a very slow process, because it would be nothing to pack 30 people into our classroom, and it's not a huge space. So we'd be very snug.
Yeah. And it's just it's not the right time. I mean, every time we think that it's the right time, another wave, something else is happening. And, so we actually this coming Friday in a couple of days will be our first in-person class that we are doing at the Nest. So we've been doing Zoom classes and everything. Yes. And it's limited to 10 people. Absolutely. And that's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. And, as much as I want to welcome everybody back with open arms and when we've reinstated the mask protocol at the Nest.
Absolutely.
Regardless of vaccination status.
Absolutely. You have to yes.
It protects the vulnerable in our community. Yes. And so that's what's really important.
Yes, absolutely.
So all these layers, all these facets that we've been doing. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me, there was a couple of things for me personally, is I realized when COVID happened and I had to stop everything, that I had become the proverbial boiling frog, not even realizing it. And I know you understand that.
I understand that so well.
Oh my God.
I understand it so well.
I can just add one more thing. I can do one more thing.
It's just one more. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I can take it. I can take it. you know, yeah, absolutely.
And then when everything stopped, it was like, you know, my head's spinning. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Right. And then I'm like, I have time to dedicate to being in my garden. I have time to dedicate being with my husband.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah. And
it's the best.
It really is. And so it really made me realize that if I am going to sustain doing the work that I'm doing, I need to rethink how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I am a huge proponent of charity work, and so I can't necessarily be out there hands-on with it. But if my business is successful in the work that I'm doing, I can provide more financial contribution to the charities that speak to my heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is so important. You know, what you're saying, I think people are feeling and have been feeling for so long that because things are different, it's bad.
It's not bad. It's actually taught us a lot of really great things.
Right. And I think that's also perspective and being able to say, you know, I'm still going to find gratitude in the shitstorm that is the world right now.
Right.
I mean, really. And there's so many things that just keep adding to the shitstorm, but in our own personal lives, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that as witches? How did we deal with that as entrepreneurs? How do we deal with that within our businesses? And what you're saying just speaks so true for so many of us, this idea of realizing what's not working.
Right.
And
having the courage to change it.
And then you see other people going, well, I can't do what I've always done. So I give up. I can't do it at all. And I'm just going to give up. And that
breaks my heart.
It breaks my heart too. Yeah. Like adapt.
So I will say with the experience of COVID and what we're still doing, that especially with small business, and I try to put out as much as this is my thing. Support your small business.
Support your small businesses.
Constantly, like this is my mantra.
Yeah.
And so it's so important. But through COVID, we've seen this. You have small businesses that have been completely wiped out.
Yes.
Overnight. And you know, and other businesses that have been able to weather it and do well. The Robin's Nest, and I attribute this so much to not only the hard work that we do. Yes, there's a lot of hard work that we do to make sure that things still go on here, but it's the community. It's the community that has supported us for so many years is why we're here.
Yep.
And we're thriving.
Yeah.
So when I say every morning, good morning, and I am so grateful that I get to walk into the shop and do what I do, it's not lip service.
No.
Like it is in my heart. It is in my soul. Like I am so fortunate.
Yeah.
But people think, oh, you have the best job in the world. This is awesome. You can come when you want. You can do what you want. And before, even when we had the tea table and I could sit and have a cup of tea with people and things like that, people think that what we do is easy, and it's not. You know, I am in here at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I have hours worth of paperwork that needs to be done, you know, and I'm constantly working on taxes, but that's all, it seems like that's all we're working, you know, and paperwork and ordering and searching and researching. And you know
curating.
That display is off by 1/4 of an inch. I need to move it.
Right.
And we need to dust and we need to clean and I'm really fortunate that I have an amazing team of people that help me with this, because I could not do this by myself. There's no way.
It's so important. You know, getting back to support your small businesses. I definitely think that the COVID crisis has awakened the general public into how important local community businesses are. I think often, you know, before in our lives, you'd be like, oh, I need something. I'm just going to run to Target. Oh, I need something. I'm just going to run to, you know, whatever. And although myself personally, I mean, I've done a lot of ordering online for your everyday things, but there are more often than not, I'm looking for, can I get this item from a local maker or a local shop? Like I could buy cat food from Petco, or I can buy the same cat food from a local small pet store.
Yep.
Right. So even if that product is commercially made, I'm going to go to the local store and spend my money there because they need it more than Petco needs it. That's what saved us.
Exactly. And I also want to add to that, which is really important. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yes,
you are.
You're going to pay a little bit more.
Yes.
And it's worth it because while, you might save literally a couple of dollars by ordering online through that big name company.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got, the convenience of that. Great. But those extra $2 that you spend on that book, goes to pay for the electricity.
Right.
It goes to pay for rent. It goes to pay for heat. It goes to pay for cooling. And it's what creates the atmosphere. And I will tell you this, and I have to say this. Amazon, Walmart, Target, all those big stores, they don't care about that crazy dream you had.
No.
They don't care about that weird experience that you had walking through the cemetery at night and want to hear your story.
Right.
I want to hear that.
Oh, we totally want to hear it. Yeah. Amazon doesn't care if you, if you made a recipe from this book, or if you, bought an olive oil and you're like, this is my favorite thing. They don't care. They just want your money. But like, if you come to me and you're like, oh my God, I use your garlic oil on everything. I'm like, really? Oh, thank you. Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Yes.
People, I think one of the things that has come from COVID is that the general public, not even just the pagan community, but the general public has taken a further interest in shopping at local farmers markets, being more conscious of where they're buying things, going out of their way to make sure that they're shopping locally, because the local economies and the local businesses are in crisis. And even now, 18 months in, businesses like mine, businesses like yours are still trying to figure out, how do we, I can't, with olive oil, part of my company, we can't do events because we're not allowed to sample anymore.
Right.
So doing an event, even a small farmer's market, without sampling doesn't make financial sense for us, because you still have to pay the same amount of money to do the event, but you're not going to get the same amount of sales. So we're not doing them anymore. So we're trying to figure out, and then you throw on top of that, which I think is something that people aren't aware of. And I'm not sure if in your business, you're getting these issues, the supply chain issues.
Yeah. Supply chain issues have been an issue.
Huge, right?
Some things that I'm ordering. So it's really, that also is part of the learning experience for things, especially for me. So again, I try to think outside of the box about different types of products we carry all your traditional things that you would expect to find at a metaphysical shop, at a witch store. But I also carry other items that can be incorporated into part of it, and how we can make it part of our everyday magical life. And I love beautiful things, and I love having a beautiful home, and all of those. So we do that. But I couldn't get cauldrons for a while.
Yeah.
So there's the supply chain issue is an issue. It's across the board.
Absolutely.
And it really does push me to more look outside the box for other opportunities. And I have other companies that I work with that would not be considered metaphysical in any way. And yet they're incorporated into the nest, and it works. So what I've had to do is, when product becomes available again, because it's this up and down cycle.
You just buy a ton.
I buy a ton. Yeah. And I've created a stock room, which I never had before, but I have to.
Yep.
So it's like, oh my gosh, cauldrons are back in stock. I'm buying 3 times the amount that I normally would.
Right.
So that when they go back out of stock again, I'll be able to make it through and have product for my guests. And my customers.
And everybody's doing that, which then causes more supply chain issues. And then you're dealing with the freight charges on things are just, they're astronomical. So I don't, and companies like you, companies like me, we're going to have to, if not, and I'm super honest, right? We're going to have to raise our prices. I can't.
Everything has.
We can't survive anymore.
Of that.
Right.
I really try to be mindful of, where can I raise prices on things?
Yes.
Where it's going to be minimal, but the ink, and this is business talking, because it is a business as well as everything else that we're doing. So where can I raise prices in certain areas so that it actually evens out in the areas that I can't raise prices?
Exactly.
And it keeps a balance, and it doesn't, the learning of, I don't want this to create a financial hardship for my guests.
Yes.
I don't want this to create a financial hardship for my customers.
Yes.
And in that, so it's like really figuring out the nuances of how can I spread out this cost. So say the cost of cauldrons go up by 20%.
A lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And I'm not going to lie, they have gone up that much.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at freight, you're looking at cost of materials, and you look at the origin of where they're created.
Yep.
And then the taxes and fees that they have to pay just to even get them into this country.
Absolutely.
Because again, yes, we're supporting small business and we're doing all of this, but the biggest part of business that I think people don't understand is that our economy is not limited to the United States. It is global.
Yeah.
Every aspect of business that we do as a small business in all ways, shapes, and forms is global.
Absolutely.
And it's all interconnected.
Absolutely. And if you are, we get people all the time trying to approach us and say, oh, well, we run a small local herb farm and we want to supply your herbs for our olive oil. And I'm like, sure. Can you make me 50 pounds of dried basil? And they're like, no, we don't have that capacity. And I'm like, I would love to work with you, but I can't, because I can get 50 pounds of dried basil from a grower in, Tunisia. And, and it's affordable and it's organic and it's ethically sourced, all the things I need it to be. And they can provide that kind of bulk
volume
for a price I can afford. And it becomes very difficult. If you wanted to, and like we do as much as we can to support as local as possible. Absolutely. Again, if I'm going to buy my glass bottles for my olive oil, I'm going to buy them from a local guy in Maine, but he's still getting them from overseas.
Correct.
Or from Mexico. But I'm still
because
going,
that's where they're manufactured.
Because that's where they're manufactured. That's where the plants are. Right. Yep. So, but I'm going to choose to do it with him because he's local economy. And so, sometimes I spend a little more on things, and then you have to trickle that down. And I think that, and again, going back to the combination of entrepreneurship and the pagan path, the way that we wrap it in energy, and we are not just about, let's make sure that we're making our bottom line. That's part of our integrity as witches and as entrepreneurs. Yes. Is saying, the integrity in which we're going to provide this product to our community and how that's going to affect all the bits and pieces. Right. So in one bottle of olive oil, I have stuff from this guy, stuff from this person, labels from this person. So I try to touch local economy on my side of buying, and then also on my side of selling. And all of those things are done with thought and intention of all parties involved. So it's not just about, and I think that's the thing about, being as I like to say, a biz witch, right? Is that we are considering all those things from all those different points of view. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I absolutely would. And I think, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because truthfully, Dawn, it's, in the pagan community, and I love how we're overlapping all of this, business in and of itself is not an easy thing. And yet we're adding another layer of integrity and resourcefulness and spirituality and all of that. So we're adding all these different layers for how we're doing our business. And, and this is something that really is not discussed in the pagan community.
Not at all.
It's
not
not.
at all.
And so I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation, because it really makes I think it brings an awareness of what is behind all that we do, and that it's not as easy as it looks.
No.
And the amount of energy that we put into it. But I think also, especially when we start looking at successful pagan and witchcraft businesses, stores, shops, things like that. And, like what you do, like what I do, and the support that our businesses provide for each other. I mean, we've carried Cucina Aurora oils for
10
at
years,
least 10 years.
At least. Yeah. I mean, I met someone at my very, very, very first vending of a Ren fair, which was Winslowshire Ren Fair. And someone was like, your products are amazing. You need to meet Robbie from the Robin's Nest. And I was like, who? Okay. And I like made a phone call, and you were like, yeah, so-and-so bought me this bottle of olive oil. Yeah, this is great. And I was like, okay, you were one of my very first like wholesale accounts. Like, yeah.
Really?
And this, yeah. Especially here, like, cause remember, I'm from New York originally. So, I had started marketing a little bit. I think you were one of like the first 10 or 20 wholesale accounts that Cucina Aurora ever had. And
that's awesome.
And Robbie, you have been more supportive, like, especially like recently, like your support of the podcast, your support of the business, like you've just been amazing. And I just like want everyone to know how incredible you are, and the company that you've built, and you're just an amazing person. But you're right. People don't understand what this takes.
Well, they see the public part of it. So I was chatting with Christopher, like every once in a while we're able to get together and we talk about things, and it's nice for me to be able to have people to bounce things off of, because he had said to me one time, he was like, you're a public person. And I'm like, no, I'm just a private person. I just, I run this little tiny shop. And he's like, no, you really don't. And it wasn't until like he actually said something to me years ago. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that, but it's that public, so what people see publicly and how we interact with them publicly. And it's the same with you, because you and I've had lots of conversations and, had time, away from work and just sitting around the fire in your backyard.
Or your backyard.
Or my backyard.
Yeah.
And in understanding that, we also have that private personal life and how we feed that and the flow back and forth with it. But it's about the work that we put forward in our communities, but it's also, how that work nurtures us personally. Absolutely. Kind of behind the scenes as well, and how important that is. Yeah. And so there is one thing I also wanted to, touch on that I feel that's really, really important, because we're talking about business. We're talking about money. We're talking about, what we put out into our communities and what we receive personally. So the pagan community, and I use that as a very general term, right? So it incorporates, all aspects of paganism, whatever you want to call it, has this almost mentality of lack. And I would agree. So I would bring this back around to, what you had said kind of at the beginning of this podcast of, people, they have this mindset, like we can't be successful because we, if we're truly walking a witchcraft path, or, the starving artist, or that mentality of we're in constant lack. Yep. Oh, I don't have the money to buy that. Right. Oh, this is a really great cauldron, but I don't have the money to buy that. Mm-hmm. This is a really great book, but I don't have the money to buy that. And that mindset and that mentality. And yes, your financial situation might be in such a way where, you might not have it. And I'm going to use a Raven Grimassi and a Stephanie Taylor Grimassi term. Yes. Okay? Yes. It is not in my budget at the moment. Yes. Because that puts it in the present moment. Exactly. It changes it from, I am this way to this is just a moment in time. Exactly. Exactly. And that's it's so important, right? At the moment. Right. If you're constantly saying, I'm broke, you're telling the universe, this is who you are. And the universe is going to be like, oh, you're broke.
okay, I'm going to keep you broke, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, I can't afford that right now, but maybe next year or the year after, or in a few months, and changing your mindset from lack to abundance, because we do live in an abundant universe. Even when we go through loss, we still live in an abundant universe.
That is the way of the witch. You know, it's the way of walking this path. We will have lean times. We will have abundant times. This is the cycle of the earth. Yes. This is the cycle of the harvest.
Yes.
You know, in the spring, when we are planting all of our seeds and when we are tilling the earth and we are adding our fertilizer and we're adding our intentions and we're doing all that, that is a lean time of year. The spring, you know, we're like, oh, it's, you know, the growth of abundance and all of this thing. It's a lean time of year. We've just come out of winter. There's really not much left.
Spring is just hope.
What are we doing? We are planting hope.
Yes. It's just
we are planting seeds, and we are going to nurture that, even though we might be struggling a little bit until things start to grow. And then we're going to harvest this, and we're going to harvest it in such a way that it's sustainable and it gives back and it supports our community, because when we support our neighbor and we support our community, guess what? They support us when times are lean.
Yes. Yes. And that's such a great, it is. And that's the cycle of earth. That's the cycle of humanity. That's the cycle of business. And I love the metaphor of the planting hope, because, and it's something that I've gone back to over and over again, especially during COVID, is saying the sun always rises. Yes. The summer always comes. So, you know, Mother Earth is going to continue her cycles, and the knowing
and winter comes, and winter here in New England, you know,
comes hard.
So how do we prepare for that?
Right.
Do we look at it fatalistically and hold it in such a space that it's like, oh, woe is me, and oh, this is going to be awful, and we're coming into that season? Or are we coming into this time of lean?
Right.
Because we know that it's coming. Do we prepare?
Yes.
Do we stock our shelves?
Yes.
Do we reach out to our neighbors and say, how can I help you now? And, you know, and so it's, you know, how do we prepare for these things as well? And it is walking the path. It is the cycle turns round and round and round. And I think that as witches, as pagan people, as anyone who walks a more nature-based spiritual path, we recognize that it's cyclical and it's not linear.
Yes. And, you know, whatever it is that you're in, good or bad, it's impermanent. It will pass. It is. So the joyful, fantastic stuff one day is going to end. And the hard stuff is also going to end. It is what we choose to focus on, which is what will sustain us. So again, going back to like what we've all been through COVID and saying, man, this fucking blows. And there's a lot of stuff that has been really, really hard. The collective trauma of the last 18 months. And if you want to go further back, the collective trauma of the last maybe 4 years, without getting into all the politics, but
amen, sister.
Right. Like, because we're not just talking about COVID. You're talking about civil unrest. You're talking about, you know, murders in the streets. You're talking about the time in which we live in is a very tumultuous, scary, traumatic time. And we're all watching it live happening on our phones. We're all watching it in real time as it's happening. And so we're all collectively traumatized. And at the same time, breathing in deeply and saying, the universe has me. There is still abundance within my life. And that abundance could be just joy. It can be napping.
How can I make things better?
How can I make things better? In little tiny moments, right? I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and we were saying this exact thing. It is these small acts of kindness that help us maintain through these ridiculous, weird, scary things. And that goes for our personal lives, our community lives, and our businesses, right? Absolutely. You know, in community, there's someone who's sick who lives nearby. I'm going to make them soup.
Right.
You know, and it's the smallest thing that I can do, but it makes the biggest difference to that
it
person.
Absolutely does.
Right. In business, I'm going to look at my team who has been, by me through everything and believing in this company. And maybe I'm just going to bring them all coffee and be like, it's all I can do, but I love you and I appreciate you. Or buy them sweatshirts. Did you buy all those? I know you've put an order in for all of those sweatshirts.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
It's for our team. Yeah.
Thank you. So I can't wait. You've got to like take pictures and post it.
Oh, we will. We'll totally model them.
I couldn't believe people, for those of you who are listening that don't know, and I don't know when this episode is going to air, but we're doing a limited run of our Cucina Aurora zip up hoodies. And they're on pre-order, and Robbie ordered a bunch of them, and over which I'm super grateful. And they're like really expensive to make. So that's why I was like, listen, I'm just going to do pre-orders, and if someone orders them, we can pay for them, but I can't just keep them in stock. They're too expensive to do that. So I saw your order come in and I was like, oh my God, Robbie ordered a bunch of them. It's very exciting also.
Because it's something that I can give to my team and all of us that are here, but it supports you too.
Well, right. So it's those little things, right? It's those little bits of joys, and I think that it's something that we can hold on to and shift our mindset from lack to abundance by saying, what small joy can I give? And what small joy can I appreciate? Right. And living in gratitude and living in abundance. It's all we can do as witches, as entrepreneurs. And it's amazing.
I will add one other small thing to that.
Yes.
And I know we're probably close to out of time, but something that's really important in having that aspect of gratitude and whatnot. There is a very powerful phrase that makes all the difference in the world. And that is thank you.
Thank you.
And even if it's saying thank you for something in the past. So real quick, I saw family recently. There was a time in my life when things were exceptionally lean. My children were very young. I had just gone through a divorce and we were living off of WIC.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have, I have very little food in the house, and, I'd support. My aunt was actually feeding my kids while I was trying to work. It was a really, really rough time in my life.
Yeah.
And my sister and my brother-in-law showed up one day with groceries, stocked my cupboards, stocked them.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for this. I didn't tell them that I was in this situation.
Was it difficult to accept?
It was it was difficult to accept, but at the same time, it was that dynamic of, oh, I can breathe.
Yeah.
Because someone reached out and helped me, even though I didn't ask for it. So recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I was visiting family. And again, this whole COVID thing it's so important to be grateful for what we do have and where we are now, because
Absolutely.
Like you said, we may not be there, we're going to grow and evolve. And I was like, I need to thank you for something you did literally almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were like, and I told them, and they were like, we remember that day. And we were so grateful to be in a position to be able to help you at that time when you really needed it. I said, I need you to know, first of all, thank you for stepping in when I really needed it and I didn't know how to ask for it.
Yeah.
And secondly, I need you to know that has been paid forward multiple times over.
Right.
So coming back to this place of saying thank you,
living in
for
gratitude
whatever we receive.
Yes.
And, if it's someone opening a door for us so that if our hands are full of packages and we're not struggling to do that, or someone is bringing us food, it's like, hey, I've got this extra lunch I'm going to give you, or you know what, I'm buying a gift for someone else just because.
We say that all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Justin and I will do, little things like go to the Starbucks drive-through and give a bigger tip to the person there. Right. And we always say when we can, we will. And being grateful for the opportunity a friend today had a fundraiser on Facebook because her cat is sick. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give a little bit of money because I have a little bit. And if I can, I will. Sometimes I can't, and sometimes I can, but I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do that. And I think that's also important, is to be grateful when someone does for you, but also to be grateful when you're in a position to help other people, because the more you have, the more gratitude you have, the more you have to be grateful for.
Exactly. And I think, and also doing it from a place of being humble is very, very important.
Yes.
It's, you're not doing it from a place of, I want recognition.
No.
Because no. We do this very humbly. Right. I'm a big proponent. A lot of people don't know the amount of charity work that I do. I do a lot of charity work.
You do.
And not only like charity work for other, organizations that better the greater communities in which they serve, but also individually as much as I can, because when I can, I will. And when I can't, I recognize that I can't, and I'm okay with that.
Yes.
But I don't do it for recognition.
No.
And that, I think, is what's really important. We do it from a place of being humble and grateful. It really does enrich our lives in such a way that transforms us,
absolutely.
And to be better.
And it's those little things that guide us through our workings as witches, as business people, as women in our lives, as friends, as for you being a mother, like those little things, those little ways of weaving through the world are what guide us. And that's how we affect change. Some people affect change by making music. Some people affect change by writing books. Some people affect change by holding a space like you have. And all of it is wonderful, beautiful, and valid. And I am so grateful that we had this conversation today. It's amazing to talk to someone on this level who kind of like gets that whole picture. So I have to, okay, wait, we have to wrap up, but
yes.
My final, well, first tell us about where people can connect with you, Robbie. If people want to chat with you, find information about the shop, where can they find those things?
So you can find me at the Robin's Nest, and we are in Bellingham, Massachusetts. And the website is therobbinsnestma.com. We've worked really hard this year on putting our online store up and running. And we've done really the best that we can with it. So it's therobbinsnestma.com/browse/shop or browse-shop.
We're going to have all the links and everything to find you is going to be on the show notes.
Email us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Email as well. And, or you know what, I just call.
And Robbie's going to be the person who answers the phone. So, right. It's you. Okay. So final question, Robbie.
Oh, I'm excited because I'm prepared.
You were prepared for the final question. If you could have me cook you one meal in a kitchen witchy way, what would it be and why?
I am so excited you're asking me this question. I was like, oh, you have to ask me this question.
Yeah, because then I'm going to make the recipe and I'm going to post it on your page for the show. Yeah.
Yes, because I do listen to your podcast. All right.
Thank you.
So the dish that I would love for you to make, and we actually, you actually brought this up before. I would like you to make me shepherd's pie.
Oh, didn't I make you shepherd's pie?
And I'm going to tell you why. You made shepherd's pie at Witchcraft by the Hearthside with Raven and Stephanie Grimassi. Mm-hmm. So that night, we opened up the classroom. I bought a fireplace specifically for that, so that Raven could sit by the fireplace.
I remember.
And tell stories, back in like the days of old. And a bunch of us were wearing our jammies.
Yeah, I think I was wearing my jammies.
Yes, and it was so amazing. And you made shepherd's pie, and I'd never had it before because it's a New England thing. It's not a Southern California thing.
Right.
And it was happiness. It was comfort. It was happiness. It was that recipe. And my only caveat is I can't, I have to do accept, very limited dairy, these days in my life. Yeah. So, dairy free is a great option. But having that warm, wonderful food, listening to, a beloved friend, an elder in our witchcraft community who is no longer here with us, and having that memory of his stories, and everybody sitting on the floor, of Adam crocheting.
Oh my God, it was such a magical night.
It was such a night of magic. And I don't think I've had shepherd's pie since.
Well, then I'm going to put my shepherd's pie recipe, which is, it's a little bit, it's a little involved. It's labor intensive, but it's pretty easy. And I will try to work out a dairy-free. How about, could you use lactose-free milk in the mashed potatoes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all you would need to do.
I typically use like almond milk.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like lactate milk. That's like real milk that doesn't have lactose in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm also having lactose problems. So now I can't eat gluten, and I can't eat dairy, and I can't eat shellfish, and I can't eat sugar, but I'm the kitchen witch, so I figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. I will put that recipe up for you. And
thank you.
You can make it, and then I'll make it, and we'll make it together. And then we'll like do a Zoom call, and we'll like eat it in front of each other. It'll be great.
Or we've just got to schedule a time where we can be outside in the nice, cool, crisp autumn air with a nice big bonfire.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yep.
I mean, it was nice yesterday, and today it feels tropical again. So
yeah,
we got the AC.
It's coming though.
It's coming. Robbie Packard, you are just absolutely amazing, delightful. You are such a bright spot in the world for me and so many people. I have to thank you for your time today. I have to thank you for your insight. I have to thank you for the work you do in the community. And of course, I have to thank you for your amazing support and love of me and my company. You are just, I don't have the words. I don't have the words for you. And that's saying something. That's saying something. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a great time. And until next time, I wish you many blessings and much, much gratitude.